Welcome back, wide world of listeners, to the Week 9 recap, Week 10 preview. 3 weeks to go here in the regular season. I'm joined by the commish and returning to the pod after a 1 week absence, the defending champ.
Returning after a lot of controversial things being said, with no face behind it. So we'll see what he has to say.
Pieced out and dropped some bombs.
Yeah, easy to make those statements when you don't have to be on camera to be the voice of them. Well, let's dive right in here. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Top of the ticket, we had a matchup between two of the podcast hosts, yours truly against the defending champ, the aforementioned defending champ. Was projected to lose this one. And despite that, an overperformance from my team and a couple of underperformances from Cam's, notably Michael Thomas and Gabe Davis putting up goose eggs, really helped out by that Chargers defense putting up 27. Maybe I found a tight end. We'll see. Cade Otton coming through for the first time at that position. Not a great showing. I played two Bengals wide receivers, and that did not really work, and two Browns running backs, and that kind of worked. But made it through a week where, I was without Goff, without ETN, without a lot of guys on my bench, and was able to survive.
Yeah, I think this is a good matchup. Did we lose Cam?
Hold on a second. Can you guys see me?
Oh, I cannot.
Your video is
frozen. Can you hear me?
But we can hear
you. I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know. I can still see you guys, and I just can't see the screen. Anyways, go ahead, Colin.
Let me try sharing it again, see what happens.
It might be my Zoom.
No Could worries.
Be.
Yeah, I can't see you at all now. It was frozen. Now it's just blank.
That's right. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think both of your teams kind of started slow. And when you look at the records now, it looks like Nick has been able to kind of turn the ship around, maybe straighten it out, get on course. Whereas Cam, it's either hit or miss. I mean, 8 and 10, you're missing more than you're hitting. But two similar storylines at the beginning of the season. But one team has seemed to have figured it out, making all these roster moves. Cam, it's just about when you're going to click. This week obviously wasn't it. But yeah, I think Nick, you made some very good lineup decisions. I mean, granted, you had a lot of guys out on bye, but you put up 140 almost. You're not going to lose a lot of games putting up that. But then on the other hand, Cam less than 90. You won't win a game throwing up 86 in the game. So, an interesting clash of two teams that started off slow. One team's been able to kind of figure it out. Cam hasn't been able to click yet, but this is why we're getting closer to the playoffs. So this is when we got to buckle in and get ready for what's ahead, especially with trades still pending.
That's right. Yeah, this was an interesting week. I mean, obviously playing the Chargers defense was huge. Getting two goose eggs from Gabe Davis and from Michael Thomas, pretty pivotal, folks in my flex. That really did not help me at all. And then also, this was the first week that usually my clicking questions have to do with my tight end and my quarterback. Thankfully, Trevor Lawrence was on bye, so I don't have much of a choice there. But this week,
he gone now.
Lost. Damn.
We'll have to get him back. Apologies, everyone, for the technical difficulties. We strive to put out an A+ product, and this isn't up to our standards right now. But we'll get him back.
Yes, we will. I wonder. Keep it moving. Sorry. I wonder how that happens. Like the video cut out and then he just completely drops. It must be the internet, I would imagine.
Yeah, he's gonna have to speak to AT&T about that.
Yeah, I was about to say his quarterback scores 14 again.
Yep.
Just that seems to be where he's at. That's all he's going to get from his quarterbacks is 14 each week.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got lucky, like started Baker Mayfield. Neither one of us had our go-to quarterbacks this week. And, they were both projected to get like around 13 points, and Baker outperformed expectations in that shootout with Houston. And Jordan Love just doesn't really look like a fantasy quarterback right now, or some would say a NFL quarterback. So, although he played fine in the game, but yeah, tough week for Cam. Big blowout. I think Cam was the low scorer of the week. One to forget. He's on to Cincinnati for sure. Focused on the next one. Well, I'll bring the screen sharing back for us at least, and we'll get Cam back when we can. On to the next one. This was a big one for Rob. If he were to stay, kind of in the playoff hunt, competitive. Jason the train keeps on rolling. I don't think he beat the median, but he did get the head-to-head win. 12-6, that's going to get it done, come playoff time. So his team continues to produce, really not a lot of red if you look up and down, but Rashad White popping off and Komet popping off enough to overcome a negative performance from his defense. And Rob just, not enough juice.
No, nothing on his bench too. So it wasn't like he was making any wrong lineup decisions. When you're winning with only 100 points, that's kind of shocking. That just means you kind of got lucky with your matchup, and Rob only 72. That might be the low point of the season. I think Johnny might have had a 60 something, but 72 points, that won't win you any game in a lot of leagues, whether you have 11 players in your starting lineup or whatever. It might be a tough road ahead for Rob to get back into this thing. But as far as Jason goes, he keeps surprising. He's just a good fantasy manager, whether he's drafting guys who are suspended and hurt and they come back later. He's a good fantasy manager. It won't be long before he takes one of these ships again, right? Doesn't he already have one?
He does have one.
Yeah. So, I'm going to keep an eye on him. I'm like I said a couple weeks ago, I'm glad I got my matchup out of the way with him, but I fully expect to see him in the playoffs, and I need to be ready for that matchup.
I don't know if Nick has provided input yet, but yeah, I mean, interesting week. He didn't really score a ton of points, still scored less than the median, I believe. He was somebody we've been talking about in the last couple of weeks, right? Who has a roster that's coming into form after not having folks for the first couple of weeks. Still a little hit or miss. He's still a scary team. He's still, I think, between Eric and Jason, one of the two scariest teams in the league when they're all running on all cylinders. Good that he can still get a win while scoring only 102 versus a fledgling 11-seeded Rob team right now. Team definitely moving in the opposite direction. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to play. I'm glad I played Jason already as well. Do not want to play him in the playoffs.
We'll circle back quickly, Cam. I know you got dropped as we were talking about our matchup here. You were in the middle of your thoughts, I believe.
I don't know the last thing that I said, but basically the gap between Nick as the 5 seed and me as the 6 seed with 6 games left to play, including the median. I'm 5 games back. So it's really going to be a battle for 6 through 8 seeds. I think that the top 5 seeds are pretty much squarely determined at this point.
Next, we had a team that was heading in the right direction, and Alex, unable to get past the fighting Johnny threes, though. Johnny continues his hunt for a playoff position just on the outside looking in, tied on record with Trevor. If you look at the top of Alex's roster, 45 points from Hurts and Eckler, you would think, especially when Gino only puts up 2, that, Johnny's going to take the L here. But got a lot of production from Amari, Najee. His kicker seriously outperformed. And, just kind of throughout the rest of the roster, it was enough to overcome that deficit at the top there.
Yeah, even with points on the bench from both teams, Johnny's, scrapping and clawing his way back up the leaderboard here. And he said it that Sunday, or maybe it was Monday. He said like his running backs are starting to come around. Those first 3 picks, Najee, Barkley, Jacobs, they're finally starting to, well, at least this week, they look like they all hit this week. And that's his team. That's like his 3 best players. So he's going to rely on them going forward here as well. Whereas Alex, he might be Dunsky. I think I guess not mathematically done, but I'm not sure anything is going to happen over on the Butker Hurts train.
Interesting little, he had Derek Carr and Taysom Hill on the bench who scored, over 30 points for for Alex this week. And then also Dalton Schultz on the bench. We see a little bit of remnants of tight end U here. He still has 3 pretty solid tight ends who can plug and play at least this week. Do we shine or shade? We return to the days that Alex starts multiple tight ends in his lineup now.
I think he's got to.
Yeah.
He didn't really get a whole lot of points from those running backs. They are studs that he's got on his lineup. Sitting there on the bench at tight end. I think I'm gonna even say at some point before the end of the season he starts 3 tight ends in a week.
Yeah, I mean, there's Kittle down there who was on a bye this week, and Kincaid is an up and coming rookie. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, why not throw 4 in there? He's got all 4 solid tight ends. He can throw them in easily. Well, no,
I don't think. Oh, yeah. Well, Taysom Hill, he could play at quarterback.
He could, yeah. Wow. So he's got options, but I'm not sure he's got any options as far as what playoff ranking he's going to be, because I don't know if there's a chance there. But both teams over the median, and that's something we didn't expect out of Alex all season. We were shining or shaded, 0.5 median wins, and now he's got a few. He's got 4 wins on the season. I think maybe 2 of them are median, so pretty impressive, even though he's 4-14 from Alex.
He's got the number 6, number 7, number 8, and number 18 tight end on his team by fantasy rankings right now.
That boy knows how to scout that position, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We talked in one of the earlier podcasts about whether we thought Alex would finish the regular season in last place or not, but slight variation on that. Shine or shade, do you think Alex takes home the toilet bowl come the playoffs?
I'll shine that, because I think that come the playoffs, it's really more about who, I find that the more involved player usually does well. Like Colin last year, the worst team in the regular season, but I think he finished second best in the lower bracket. Jason, I think he was the number 9 seed, the first team out of the playoffs, finished dead last. And I think it has to do with how active you are adding players. It doesn't help that Alex is not, I'll venture to say he's the least active player in this league. And I think that that's going to hurt him down the line. Even if he does have, solid matchups, I think he has to make some moves in the waiver wires if he wants to take advantage of people who are on bye week. I know Dalton Kincaid's going to be on a bye in week 13. So the toilet bowl tournament does not favor the inactive coach.
Yeah, he's definitely the favorite to win the toilet bowl. $100 in fab still left over. Has basically the least amount of points for. But Rob does have the least amount of points for by 0.4. So they basically have the same amount of points, which is crazy. But yeah, you're right. The activity level of Alex, unless he turns it around in the playoffs specifically to avoid the toilet bowl, I see him easily winning it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good point, Cam, about the activity level. And, over 2 weeks, it's hard to kind of sneak up on someone and beat a more talented team over a 2-week leg, so to speak. So, I think Rob might give him a run for his money, but it'll be interesting to see if Alex pays attention, because Rob, I think, is down to 20 fab. So Alex could, make 5 acquisitions to deny Rob a particular player or something. We've seen that move before in the playoffs with fab. So, he did make a roster move this week, although it was for no fab. I think he changed kickers. So, you could see it happen, but I think I'll shine that as well.
I have another quick shine or shade. I just want to pull up this on mobile because I understand it better. As it seems right, as we look at the standings right now, I'm talking about Johnny's team. Johnny's currently the 9 seed. Willie's the number 10 seed. Just a few short weeks ago, Willie was the 6th seed and Johnny was the 11th seed. kind of on the outs. Shine or shade that Johnny finishes the season with a better overall standing than Willie does.
I'm going to shine that.
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, they're heading in opposite directions. Johnny's got more fab to play with to improve his team if something goes wrong over the next couple weeks. I think does Willie have who does Willie have? Yeah, Willie's got that Buffalo stack. I mean, as the weather gets worse in Buffalo, like, who knows whether they're able to throw it all over the park like they have been. I'll shine that. I think Johnny finishes above him.
I will as well for basically all the same reasons. He's relying too much on one team. A lot of his points came from one player in the early on in the season, Achan, and he's still out. So maybe if he comes back, he can turn things around. But Johnny's definitely trending in the right direction with those three strong running backs. He's got options on the bench. I think Johnny will finish above Willie, barring something miraculous or unexpected.
Yeah, Willie's on an 8-game slide right now. Johnny's on a 3-game hot streak, tied with Troy for the longest streak in the league. Crazily enough, Willie's 8-game losing streak is not the longest we've seen this season. Rob was on a 10-game losing streak just last week or 2 weeks ago, I believe. Yeah. Good to see that Johnny heeded my call from a couple of pods ago.
Yeah.
Colin, you got a big win. Important to keep up in the run for the number 1 seed there against the aforementioned Willie, handing him that most recent loss. Thoughts on your victory here?
Yeah, this one feels particularly good because it's the bottom half of my team that showed up. Between the Browns defense with 23, Younghoe Koo with 18 points. I got a rookie Tank Dell going off with the game-winning touchdown for 26 points. And then Jonnu Smith, my makeshift tight end, because Evan Ingram was out this week, so I had to play Jonnu. He goes for a 100-yard touchdown or whatever it was. So, the bottom half of my team really showed up. We can forget about Elijah Moore. He hasn't shown up all season. I don't even know where he plays or anything because he doesn't ever seem to do anything. But either way, this one feels good because, again, like the second half of my team, you got to scroll down to see where all my points came from. That feels good when you can make your lineup decisions that way. They come through like that. Not a lot on the bench. So, again, I'm making the right decisions, which, again, feels good. And the percentages on that have changed. I think me and someone else are almost tied for the best percentage manager, if you will, with that new thing they added. But again, Willie on the downswing, 100 points, but that's tough. Those aren't going to win you a lot of games. But he's heading in the wrong direction. It doesn't matter if Josh Allen goes for 24 or Ramondre finally has his breakout game for the season. 126 was good enough to do it. And it feels good knowing that it's all my complimentary players that were showing up. So I'll have some of my more strong guys coming back this week.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game that you probably had circled on your schedule for a while from a bye week perspective, right? You had 5 of your players, 5 startable players, I would say, with the exception of maybe Jordan Mason, on bye, right? So you really had to plug in your guys. Still dropped 126 points. You love to see that when you got to, kind of scrap together a team on your quote unquote team's bye week. Awesome to see that, man. This is a sign of a good manager if you can put the right pieces in place and have your accessory players, kickers, defenses, streaming tight ends play really well.
Yeah, first single digit point game for Herbert this season. Looked like after last week putting up 24 against Chicago, he was back, and then another kind of disappointing performance. Hasn't looked incredible since the bye. But it'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on down the stretch for you for sure.
Yeah, I'm banking on Herbert a lot. I put Kyler Murray on the trade block. I know if you need a quarterback, and I'd love to make something happen with Kyler Murray. I believe in Herbert, and hopefully he's able to pull through with that.
Before we jump into our next game, I have a shine or shade, and reference back to a shine or shade we made probably on the second pod or the third maybe. We were talking about the idea of total wins for the number 1 seed being above 17, which was the high last year, with the median being included now. 2 teams, both locked up playoff spots this week, Colin and Josh. With 3 weeks left, 6 total potential wins you can add to your resume. Do we still think that 17.5 is the Shiner say that 17.5 is going to be broken, right? The team with the most wins will have more than 17 wins by the end of the season.
I'll shine that, particularly because I don't want to get too cocky here, but I do play Troy next week, and he has a big bye scenario. So whether I beat the median or not, well, time will tell. But I can almost guarantee a win versus Troy, just because he has a lot of these guys. Well, he hasn't set his lineup yet, but he has a lot of buys. I mean, Cup, Nakua, Pacheco, and the Chiefs defense. You know, he's going to have all these other guys step up, which they can do. I mean, Gus Edwards really went off last week, or not off, but he's been showing up, scoring a touchdown in at least a touchdown in the past 3 games. I mean, maybe I overlooked Troy, but I feel confident that I can get at least 1 win this week, which means I'm only 2 wins away from that 17. Yeah, I think one of me or Josh will beat the 17. Yeah.
I'll shine it as well, but I'll go the opposite way. I think Josh is going to finish as the number 1 seed purely based on his remaining schedule. He plays the bottom 3 teams in the standings over the last 3 weeks of the regular season. Yeah. So I feel like 2-1 is probably the minimum he does there, and then he just needs to beat the median twice along that route as well. So yeah, I think there's every chance Colin beats 17.5 too, but it's kind of hard to see how Josh doesn't.
Yeah, that's fair. I do play Troy, and then I play Nick next week, or week 11. So that'll be a good matchup. I can't overlook that one. And then the final week I play Eric. And he's the 3 seed. So you're right. I do have a much tougher schedule than Josh. So it likely is Josh that does it, but I still have confidence that I will be able to keep this train going and scoring more than at least the median.
Dan, you think someone's going to get there?
I think, yeah. I mean, both teams have to go 500 or better. I think it's possible. I think with Josh's schedule, I think with the form that Colin's team is in, I think we'll see a record-breaking year as far as who knows. We could see potentially both teams get 18 wins because they don't play each other, right? So it's definitely possible. I'm gonna shine it. I want to see both. I want to see both of them hit 18.
2 of the front runners at the moment locked horns this week. Very close matchup as well. I don't think either one of them got over the median, if I remember correctly. But Eric did take the head-to-head win against Josh. Josh rolling with Levis, not a wise decision last week. And bad game from Tyreek, which you don't say that very often. That was kind of the difference here. Neither team really wowed in their performance, but Eric had a little more nothing than Josh had.
Yeah, neither above the median, but it was close. That's something you didn't expect coming out of the 1 and the 3 seed. Was there any points on the bench? Not much. So they almost played a perfect game. Oh, except for Jake Ferguson, the Dallas tight end on Josh's bench. That could have got him over the line and the median. That would have kept him at 16-2, which would have been incredible if he just started the right tight end. And there's Kyle Pitts. That's probably why he's trading him away, is because he's so salty that he started him when he should have started Jake Ferguson. And now he's 14-4, tied with the same best record. Yeah, I mean, we'll see if that trade goes through. It looks like people have forgotten that they have to vote. So hopefully once they see this, they'll be like, oh, shit, I got to vote on trades. That's how this league works. But yeah, I like to see that the two of the best teams in the league are scoring low, in a low scoring battle there, kind of beating each other up. That helps me. I mean, now that I'm tied with Josh, that was a fun matchup to watch, and I'm glad it turned out the way it did. It keeps Eric close by, and it keeps Josh close by as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I mean, I would have, for one, I would have expected this game to be higher scoring. With between both, these are two of the highest powered offensive teams in the league. Look at the standings right now. I mean, Josh has a 24 point advantage over Colin in the 2 seed. And Eric is also right there, right? So if you could make up a couple of that games and a couple of those games in the standings, we could have a very tight finish. I mean, that week 12 game with Colin could end up being what determines a potential first round bye for both teams, right? So I think right there, I guess we don't have buys in this league, but still, I mean, playing the 8 seed versus the 7 seed or the 6 seed, honestly, could have massive implications. So awesome to see how close these teams are with points for this close to the end of the season.
And I like the fact that I have more FOB than both Eric and Josh. So that makes me feel a little bit confident that I can maybe make the move that they might want. And I have the firepower to do it.
Yep. And last but not least, in a matchup of teams that are right there around the playoff cut line, both of them getting over the median this week, but Troy takes the head-to-head win. Trevor's playing sneaky good ball. Got some good performances from Dak and Aaron Jones and Olave, Justin Tucker, but really Troy on the strength of his defense, and then obviously good performances by the Bengals that he's got at the top of the roster that carried him to a narrow victory over Trevor.
Yep, and he left a lot of points on the bench too, so that was enough to get it done. I'm glad I didn't play Troy with all his guys, because he does have a good team, but 2 of his best receivers are out. He doesn't have Chiefs defense, who've been surprisingly really good this year after the past few years have been questionable about their defense, and he doesn't have Pacheco against me. So I'm really happy I'm not playing against a full strength team. I feel confident I can beat Troy, but again, I think Trevor's on the trending in the wrong direction. He might have to make something happen before the end of the regular season to turn things around. But, these guys are fighting for the playoffs, so they're going to have to do everything. They're going to have to give it their all here the last couple of weeks to secure a spot to move forward.
Yeah, just taking a look at, how Colin's game played out, where the top half of his roster didn't perform very well. And you look at Trevor's team, his top 4 guys, his core 4, if you will, played really well. And then his accessory guys, not even accessory guys, Kelsey, Metcalf, Zach Moss, somebody who's been pretty good all season, didn't really perform, and that ultimately was what did him in, right? He had a couple of performers on the bench. Odell dropped a touchdown, or had a touchdown, right? Chark played pretty well. But kind of the tale of 2 managers here. I got to talk about the Zach Moss trade whenever we talk about Trevor's team. I think even though Zach Moss underperformed this week, Cam Akers is out for the season with another torn Achilles. So I think it's safe to say that Trevor won this trade fair and square, even though Cam Akers did show some bright spots. I don't think he ever scored double digits this year. Zach Moss certainly did. But handshake to Trevor. I will concede our 30th birthday. And I'll let you have this one this year.
As the owner of Madison, I was very nervous that I was about to be in a 50-50 split, or maybe even have the backup. He seems to be getting the carries without Akers there, but he was not really impressing, and still hasn't impressed with his yards per carry or ability to do anything with that opportunity. So I think if Akers had stayed healthy, that trade would have looked differently come the end of the season. Just a bummer that Akers obviously got hurt. I have a shiner shade. Both of these teams are currently holding on to the 7th and 8th seeds. Shiner shade, both of these teams end up making the playoffs.
That would have to mean that Johnny, who's trending in the right direction, and Willie don't.
Unless you think me and Cam are falling out of the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, so I'll shine that both of them do make it. It kind of all depends on Johnny, whether he's for real with this little bit of a win streak here or not. He's exactly 1,000 points. That's wild too. Yeah, I'll shine that. That both make it.
Yeah, it's questionable. I like Johnny's team more than I like the form of Trevor's team right now. I don't want to count Willie, Rob, or I guess Alex out completely, but it definitely seems like those three teams have sort of cemented themselves in their current seeds at the moment. Um, so I'm going to shade it. I think that I think that Johnny come 3 weeks from now finishes better overall than Trevor, and I think Troy's in.
I'll shade it as well, but I think Troy is the one who misses out, particularly on the facts of his matchup this week. We talked about, obviously he's playing Colin, who's got a strong team, but he also has like some roster issues with, who's on bye and stuff this week, and doesn't really look like he has very good options for who he's going to start. And then he plays Eric week 11, so the schedule doesn't really light up for him, and then he ends with me. So, three teams who are currently above him in the standings, the easiest team left being the 5th seed at the moment. I mean, he maybe goes 2-1 if he has a really good performance, but probably more like 1-2 or, potentially even 0-3 head to head in those matchups. So, with one game separating him from Trevor and Johnny, I think, I'm going to say it's Troy's team that misses out. So that's the recap of last week. We can talk quickly about Fab, and we have a pending trade as well to dive into a little bit here. Rob's spending spree continues. Not quite the 20 plus for running back that he's managed in back-to-back weeks, but 20 if you combine Gibson and Minshew here, which leaves him with 20 left for the remainder of the season. He did, it was a smart spend in that there were 3 other bids. Colin, you were in for 7 for Gibson. Minshew, he could have had for free, but smart on Gibson at least. Keaton Mitchell, he was #1 trending guy this week. I was a little surprised to see him go for just 5. Noah Brown, Troy outbid Josh for that one there, and then a couple defenses and kickers further down the roster here, but overall pretty light spend this week.
Yeah, I was on the Antonio Gibson bid, customizing my bid for quite some time, more than the average fob. I started out at 10, like literally it was still like Sunday night or maybe it was Monday night. I put a bid in for 10 and I was like, I think that'll do it. Then I dropped it down because I was like, maybe no one else thought he had a good performance against the Patriots, and 10 wouldn't have even done it. So we'll see how Antonio Gibson does here in the going forward here. I wanted him pretty badly because he looked good against the Patriots. But there's a good chance that, Brian Robinson can get hurt. Even that other guy they have, Rodriguez or something, he hasn't looked like he's taken a hold of anything in that backfield. So this guy, he could be their #1 running back out of nowhere. And that's kind of why I wanted him. And he could have taken me over the line in the playoffs maybe, but Rob got him. I'm not sure he's going to do much with him, but it was tough to see him go. I was curious. I kind of wanted him pretty badly, but I didn't bid enough, obviously.
I'm going to do a quick shine or shade on Willie and Rob. Both have a combined 29 fob left in the to use by the end of the season. Shine or shade, they both finish with 0 fob come the end of the regular season.
I'll shine that. I think they're both active enough that like they'll continue to put in fab bids. And even if it's like the last week of the toilet bowl or something, and they're spending $3 to get a defense that they want, like you can't bring it home with you. So I think, yeah, I'll shine that. I think they both will end up using what they got left.
I'll shade it just for the reason that it might be tough to get exactly to get to 0, because they could get outbid on every single thing they do and nothing is spent. It would be interesting. It would be surprising to see them actually spend every dollar and get what they're bidding for. So I'll shade it that they don't have 0, but they'll still use it. And quickly, there was a muff just now. There was a Thursday night muff. And I know last year we talked about Monday night muffs, but there was just a muff on Thursday night in this Panthers-Bears game. And I needed to report that. That seemed something I had to urge.
I do appreciate it.
Colin with the muff on the street. Thank you for that.
What do you think, Cam? You think they're going to end up using their whole amounts here?
If all things go according to plan with Willie and he sneaks into the playoffs, he's gonna have to spend all of that fab in week 13. And he's got to figure out a quarterback situation, got to figure out Stephon Diggs being out and his running backs, right? So I think Willie finishes with 0. It really depends if Rob just decides to blow a bag on somebody else who might get injured in the next couple of weeks, on their backup, and they won't do anything like they are wants to do, and Rob blows a bag on these people. I think I'm going to shade it. I think it's very likely that Willie finishes with none. I think it's not as likely unless something crazy happens with an injury for Rob. So I'm going to shade it.
And then talk of the town at the moment, if I can find it here, is this pending trade we have. We have a lot of incoming offers for Josh over the last couple days, and the one that tickled his fancy the most is Romeo Doubs joining the squad in exchange for Demario Douglas and Kyle Pitts heading the opposite way. Change of scenery for a few guys here. Doubs, I'm sure, happy to go to the potential number 1 seed in the playoffs. And Pitts and Douglas, they're obviously heat culture guys joining one of the winningest squads in the league historically. Thoughts on the trade, how it unfolded, the current pending status of the trade, anything like that?
I'll just add a quick note. So I've been in talks with Josh on trying to secure Kyle Pitts for some time now, probably about 4 or 5 weeks. The trades that I've offered him are usually larger ones. I've tried to package Pitts and Jahmyr Gibbs in some like a larger deal. He's just not willing to kind of blow up his team in that way. And actually, we hadn't really had any talks over the last 2 weeks about trades. And he sent this to me this morning, but he proposed this to me. Dobbs was a piece involved in the previous trade talks, but not all those eventually fell through. He sent this to me this morning. I saw it and I was like, yeah, this works. Like I'm a wasteland at tight end right now. I need a tight end. I like Kyle Pitts. I don't really know much about Demario Douglas. Honestly, the most that I know about him is through Colin. I know he's a Pats fan. This guy seems to be making moves, especially with Kendrick Bourne being out. So I'm happy with the trade. I think it's beneficial. I think Josh needed to free up a roster spot to start bring Josh Connor off of the IR. So I guess it was beneficial for both. I'm happy with my haul. If people would like to vote on the damn trade, I would be very happy for that. Colin, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, my initial first thought on the fact that what is this addressing for Josh? Like, is this really a need for Josh? Is this guy on the Green Bay Packers? I don't even I'm just pretty confused by it. But then when you say that it's addressing that he needs to clear up a roster spot, there are better ways to clear up a roster spot than getting rid of a really talented tight end and an up-and-coming receiver in a struggling offense, mind you. But, they call him Pop Douglas because he can pop off at any time. Like, there's hype around him, and there's some credibility to it. And it's for a guy who isn't a rookie. It's a second year, who's been kind of whatever, like nothing. At least for me, he doesn't really, make me excited. So it's just really confusing from Josh's perspective. Like, if you're really doing this to clear a roster spot, there are better ways to do it. I voted to pass it because, they both accepted. Clearly they are okay with this, but once we see where all the votes are at, we'll determine what happens. But it's confusing for me. And I say that about a lot of trades that don't involve me. Maybe it's because I wish I had some more activity. But this one really is a head scratcher because I don't see why Josh needs this or where he saw the value in this, especially because he's the one who proposed it. So I think he's doing you a favor more than helping himself out. And he's the number 1 seed. He shouldn't be doing anybody any favors. So, we'll see what happens, but it's definitely confusing for me.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of view Douglas and Dobbs as like a like for like swap, in which case I kind of view this as like Kyle Pitts for free. And I mean, maybe he really likes Dobbs a lot more than Douglas. I would hope so if he proposed this trade. But I mean, to your point, Colin, you probably could have traded Pitts for 5 fab, right? And instead of swapping receivers, or gotten 5 fab on top of this trade, right? From Cam. So, I don't think it's the most balanced trade. I think this is one we'll probably look back at as one that Cam wins. That's my prediction, at least. But I also voted to approve it because they're 2 grown adults, and both consented to this trade. So it's not like I kind of view vetoing a trade as like, if someone is breaking the rules, like if someone is clearly tanking or just doesn't care and is like selling their team for scraps or something, then that to me is like the point of vetoing a trade. But I'm not sure what Josh saw in this, particularly given that I know a lot of people were sending him offers, and it sounds like he probably could have maybe gotten a similarly sized trade that might have been better for him. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens assuming it goes through.
Right. Like, I don't disagree with sending away Kyle Pitts and Demario Douglas. It's what he's getting. Like, he's not, how is that a need? Like, do you need to do this, Josh? Probably not. I'd have to really look at his roster, but does he really need like the 3rd receiver in Green Bay right now to get rid of a talented tight end and a receiver that is going to make a difference for a struggling Pats team? I offered him Kyler Murray. He needs a quarterback. I'm giving him a need. When I'm like, creating a trade, I'm sitting there looking at both teams and you can click all the players. I'm taking my time and thinking about, oh, I'm giving you a running back. I'll probably ask for a running back in return. Like, there's certain things in a trade that I go through and think about. I put a lot of time into like trade offers. And then you see something like this get offered and accepted. It makes me want to scream at Josh specifically, but just in general. Like, how can I put 10 minutes of thought into a trade offer that gets rejected instantly by Josh, and then he comes around next morning and that? Oh man, it's painful. So I don't know what to do, but we'll see. Hopefully, I mean, it's going to go through. I would imagine everyone else is going to pass it, but I would just rather them do it now instead of, at least it'll be done before Sunday. If not everyone's passed it by then, I'll send it through because clearly it's going to go through, I think.
There are some dissenters on the votes, and I'm curious to know who that is. I think I have an idea of one of the people. Another person who is actively in trade talks with Josh. Actually, Troy had mentioned that in the chat, that I think that there was a trade that he had initially sent and redacted, and then Troy sent the same trade back, and I guess he also rejected that as well. But I wasn't aware that there were so many folks who were trying to make moves with Josh. So that's interesting that this was ultimately the move that was made. But I think that ultimately what happened too is like, this could create more activity in the league too. Like, I'm really more interested in Kyle Pitts in this trade than I am Demario Douglas. So I have a need at tight end that needs to be filled. Hopefully Kyle Pitts is that guy. I don't know why I'm putting blind faith in a guy who's only scored 4 touchdowns in 3 years, but I think Demario Douglas is definitely on the block as far as moving pieces around.
Yeah, I as soon as he's on your roster, I was gonna go to see what I can work up real quick, because I want him and I want him in the other league, but the team that he's on in the other league, that guy just refuses to do anything with trades. So I'm gonna get him in one league or another. Is what I'm gonna say. And I drafted him. He was one of those guys that I was like, oh, I'm gonna get him by the end of the draft because I knew no one was gonna take him, and I dropped him because I needed some help. And now look at him; he's talk of the town. So I
There's been a couple of those players this year. I think Josh Kobe Myers is one of them. Folks who have spent some time on a couple different teams via trade or via waiver. I think that's funny that the people who start out as relative nobodies and become the talk of the town in our league.
By the way, that's an example of a trade that I think both teams won, because Josh Kobe Myers has been doing great in his new home and is starting every week for Josh, and Josh Rome Ford, or the player formerly known as Josh Rome Ford, is slotted into my lineup every week as well. So I'm a big running back guy, and that bolstered my running back room, which I always love. And I think Josh really needed a wide receiver. So, so far at least, as long as they both stay healthy, that feels like a win-win.
I also benefited from that trade by adding Hunter Henry to my team. He got me a couple points this week.
That's fine. I'm in love with Kate Otten. So
yeah, like why didn't even Josh ask for a tight end in return?
He's got Josh Ferguson doing.
He needs the roster spot.
Oh right, yes. Oh man, almost cringeworthy. This whole decision, all day today, has been tough to deal with. But yeah.
Anything else, gents?
Yeah, I want to just quickly. Well, I sent this in the group chat over the week. I want to just kind of walk through this idea of the luck factor. We kind of touch on this once a year. I did this during the middle of the season, but luck factor, for those who are unfamiliar with what I'm doing here, is I am taking a look at how many wins you may be underperforming or overperforming based on luck alone, right? So based on the schedule that you've played. With the median in play this year and last year, it's a little bit harder to calculate. I'm only looking at head-to-head wins that you have. But if you look at the BJ column here, this tells you how many wins above the or below the expected win value that you should have, right? So, for example, Colin here has 1 win above his expected win total head-to-head so far this year. So by that logic, if you look here, Johnny is the least lucky team based on his schedule, right? He has 2.3 less wins than he probably should. And Jason is the most lucky team this year, and he has 1.3 wins more than he probably should. Does this kind of, based on what we know about the season so far in the standings, does this kind of make sense to what you guys see in the overall standings?
Yeah, I would say with those two teams specifically, I would say yes. We were all high on Johnny's team going in, and then he's been underperforming. And then the opposite with Jason, like with Jason's best 2 players being out the first 4 weeks, we thought that he was going to be, coming from behind, and he's been a strong contender since week 1. So specifically with those 2 teams, I think this lines up with what's happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. Glad to see myself in the green there. That's good.
And then one other thing I've done the luck factor over the past couple of years, and this column here tells us the total number of wins you have accumulated or lost via luck alone. So here we have like the total regular season wins, total regular season losses. And I shared this tidbit with the league, and Troy seemed to confirm that this actually was very valid. He has 9 wins below his what he should actually have. He is the least lucky team in the league. And on the contrary, Alex is the most lucky team in the league, who has 6 more wins than is expected that he should have.
Wow.
And that past 2 seasons?
This is since 2015.
Oh,
15. So we have, and this also would include folks who have been in the league before, like David and my dad. So interesting little view here that, and it's interesting too that Trevor, a relatively new-ish person, he's his first year back in the league since probably 2016 or 2015. He still has -4 wins compared to the expected. So very interesting.
I'm a little surprised to see that I'm one of the luckiest team, the second luckiest team over the course of this whole of our careers. Surprised to see that. I only have 1 championship. It was fucking a decade ago. And last season I had probably the worst season anybody could have, and yet I'm one of the luckiest teams. So that one doesn't quite add up in my opinion, but this is statistically proven. So who am I to gauge my own luck? But then the Troy one makes sense. He's always on the wrong side of the coin. I feel like, whether it's winning or losing by a point to make it or miss the playoffs, injuries, all that. Troy's makes sense. I'm confused by mine, but we'll go with the numbers here.
If and a little behind the curtain on how we calculate this, right? So we look at your 2022 luck factor. What I'm doing here is I'm checking to see, I'll kind of go into the raw data here. For example, like for 2022 with you, I'm taking a look at what you scored every week compared to what everybody else scored in the week and how many wins you would have gotten over other teams that week, right? So you just had a low scoring team last year. That's just the way that it kind of, the median definitely helps make this a little bit more of an obsolete kind of metric here. But you have technically won, you overperformed compared to your schedule last year by 0.3 wins.
Well, I guess that's a good thing, even though when like 5 of your top 6 players blow their whole knee out and I'm still getting a couple wins here and there. Yeah, that feels good. But the whole season as a whole, that was demoralizing.
We lost Cam again.
He's got to fix that. He's got to call AT&T right now.
That was pretty funny. Well, I think we're just about finished here anyways, so we can wrap it.
Yeah, let's look at next week's matchups real quick, even though
Yep.
it's started. Johnny's already got 9 points up on Cam from a defense. I think he's got Bears defense playing right now. It's 10-6, so lower scoring game as everyone would have expected.
Yeah, you've got 6 1/3.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think good matchup between myself and Eric. We're separated by 1 game in the standings. We already talked about Josh has a pretty easy run in. He gets robbed this week. Alex in an absolute must win, obviously, against Willie. You have a relatively easy one in the sense that playing a team who's in the bottom half of the standings in Troy. We had talked about Troy's brutal run into the season. Johnny versus Cam is a sneaky important one. 2 teams kind of in the bottom half of the playoff bracket at the moment. And then Trevor, to keep pace in the playoff race, gets Jason. So, obviously every matchup in a 12-team league where 8 make the playoffs is going to be important for playoff standings this late in the season, but a couple of really juicy ones for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I want to say excluding my matchup with Troy, which obviously I want to win, but like I expect to win this because he's weak on his starters. I think this week is going to be a big shakeup week. We might see some upsets. We might see, I'm expecting more points than last week. Last week was either the lowest or second lowest median at 108. I'm expecting it to go up from there. So we'll see some points, I would imagine. Even though the Chiefs are out and the Rams are out for sure on a bye. I expect to see a little bit of shakeup this week. I want to see maybe Rob pull an upset on Josh. That'd be interesting to see. But absolutely right. You said it. These are some juicy matchups this week, and I'm expecting to see a shakeup.
Anything else, gents, before we adjourn and get back to watching one of the worst Thursday night football matchups in history?
I don't know. There was a Colts Broncos game last year that was probably the worst football game I've ever seen. I think the final was like 6-3 or something like that. It was.
I think didn't Al Michaels apologize during that one to viewers? Yeah, that was pretty bad. All right. Well, good luck, everyone, in week 10 here. 3 weeks to go.
Yes. Go vote. Go vote on that trade because it's not going through otherwise. So, yeah.
Thanks, boys.
See ya.